Hello and welcome to Odd Sock Comics. This is my comic book day haul, and I'm not going to call this a new comic book day haul because this incorporates a couple of different weeks and a whole bunch of different shops. But I've got a bunch of books, and I did a lot of reading, and I got all caught up. So I'm going to go through, this is the last two new comic book days, so Wednesday the 5th and the previous Wednesday, which was like the 29th or 30th, I can't remember. But I've been traveling, I've been all over the country, all over the South. So I didn't get a chance to read them until I got home on Wednesday, and then I picked up my books from my local comic shop, and I read through them, and I was able to get through most of the books fairly quickly. In fact, I read everything except for 3 that I didn't intend to read. So this has been a heavy reading day. All right, well, I've got my light set up a little bit different. There's a little bit of extra shadow today. We'll see if that's acceptable or if it's annoying or not. But I wanted to start out with my favorite book of the week, which was The Incredible Hulk Last Haul. I almost put this back on the shelf. My local comic shop pulled it for me. I didn't request it, but because I was pulling the Immortal Hulk, he added this one to it. This is a great one-shot. It's really pretty good character development. Gives some good meaning to Bannon, and I just thought it was really good. Gives some character development with some history. Just really fun. There's a little bit of action. There's a lot of talking. But honestly, I think this was a good all-around comic book. Good story, good art, good character development, all of the things that I'm looking for as an adult reading comic books. So I enjoyed this one a lot. This was my favorite book. Now, as I go through, I'm going to show a few more of the kind of highlights, and then I'll go get into the lowlights. So we're going to start with the books that I liked. So next up, on that same vein, is The Immortal Hulk number 18. And I like this one a lot as well. Some really good horror aspects. I'm not sure if the character is actually Abomination, but he refers to it as Abomination. But the way that they drew that and the way that they introduced that character into the scene was really creepy, really well done. And then I just love this cover. Like this moody Hulk, really dark in the shadows. Honestly, this one's going up on the wall. I've got it right now. It's in a Mylar. I don't know that I'm going to keep it in this Mylar. I just had one left over. But this is going up on my wall. I love this cover. So this was a great read. Good book all around. All right, next up is Savage Avengers number 2. And this one too, it did a good explanation of how Conan got pulled into this whole thing, why Wolverine is there, the Punisher shows up, a whole bunch of, they're kind of pulling together the team in a really interesting way. Really good action, really good kind of, I can't think of the right word, the driving the story forward. It's really the bad guy, but it's more than just, there's a bad guy out there. There's actually stuff, interesting things, an interesting goal of the bad guy. So this is a good series. It looks like, I'm going to keep going with this one. This is the only team book that's out there right now that has me entranced. And I think it's an interesting team, and that's a big part of it. But then I think that the creators are really digging in an interesting way, something that hasn't been done 1,000 times over. So this one was really fun to read. All right, next up is Deceased number 2, and I went with the Yasmin Putri horror homage, and this one's obviously, what is this, Friday the 13th? Nightmare on Elm Street. Sorry, can't mess those ones up. But the cover's fun. The book was surprisingly fun. I like what they're doing with it, explaining things away. Good art all the way through. I think Tom Taylor is kind of constrained in within those constraints that he's been given. He's really engaging in a storytelling experience that's more than what I've seen him do in some other situations, which is very cool. this is what he does well. I liked his hack and slash, but he liked to throw a little bit of he'd throw his politics in a way that was kind of obnoxious, and he did it fairly frequently. And that's what has happened in some of the other books that he's done for Marvel. But I think he's constrained here with DC, and he's doing a really good job. Story's good. He's the right writer for this book, and I think they'll give him plenty more chances going forward. All right, next up for Goodreads, have Doomsday Clock number 10. And this one we finally get, really, this is a focus on Mr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan? Whew. I am messing up all over today. But this is Dr. Manhattan introducing how he came into the DC world that he's in now, in the multiverse, what are they? Metaverse, whatever they're calling it. Really, was that? See, now I'm getting all confused. Was this one the metaverse, or was the last one the metaverse? We'll see. Yeah, here's the metaverse. This is where he talks about the metaverse, which is a new concept. And I think it's an interesting path to go down. Gives a new spin on the multiverse and provides some emphasis on why one world might be more interesting to follow than others in the multiverse. But the book was really good. It definitely had a feel of like the Before Watchmen series, the bouncing back and forth through time, telling multiple stories and having them unravel not in a linear time sequence. Like, what's going to happen at the end fairly early on, and it still builds up to happen. And that's interesting that the way that it happens. There's still a twist in the way that it is. Really creative storytelling. I enjoyed it. Definitely has the feel of the old Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan, the way that he talked in that. So this was a good read as well. All right, next up I have some of the misses. So I'll start out with kind of a mid-level. So Spawn, Road to 300. This book is exactly what it says to be. It's the history of Spawn. All it is talking about how Spawn developed over time. Really cool art on the inside, really cool splash pages with the characters from the history. That was cool to look at. It was worth the book, and I'll be picking them up to 300 because it's fun. But this one, obviously it's not progressing any story. It's there to tell the history of Spawn. So mediocre, but still worth it, especially for $2.99. That one's still $2.99, right? Yeah. All right. Next up, Thanos number 2. This one was also, it was all right. It's definitely following the story of Gamora more than Thanos, but it's interesting, and they're doing a good job of kind of developing the relationship and why she ended up where she did. So it's a good book. It's a good read. I don't know if I care that much, so I don't know if I'll be continuing down this road. But it's fine if you like Gamora or you like Thanos. This is probably a good book to be reading. It's not a waste of time to be reading it. It's a good story. All right, next up, I picked up the Guardians of the Galaxy Annual number 1. I did like this one more than I expected. I still think that it's just it's a team book, and I don't really care about the team, so that makes it difficult. It's not the kind of comic book that I want to read. I think for the most part I'm going to be avoiding team books going forward unless there's something really interesting driving me there. But it's a fine read. They're a little expensive, $4.99, and it's got a couple of stories intertwined in there that worked out okay. All right, next up, these are all of the middle-in books. This one is Green Lantern number 8. And honestly, I enjoyed this one as well. The art is Liam Sharp, always good, very fun things that he draws in there. It was a little bit more, I don't know, I think that it felt kind of jumpy to me from panel to panel. It wasn't always a congruent story, and so because of that, and maybe it was because I was reading really fast because I had a lot of books to get through, but I didn't quite catch on to the story. I also don't have the history with Green Lantern, which has been difficult to get into, but fun to look at. Like I said, storytelling wasn't the greatest. I think it's putting a lot of story into a small package, and so if you don't have the background information, it may be a little harder. Or maybe it's just that I was reading too fast and my reading comprehension is terrible. Who knows? But didn't quite catch the story in this one. That's why it goes in the middle of the pack. All right, now to the ones that I don't care too much for. First up, Heroes in Crisis. Okay, first of all, I love the interior art. This was just, the characters are drawn in a fun way that I like. I just don't care about the story. I don't like what Tom King does. Every character is giving some emotional lecture about who they are, and they're all kind of basically the same. It's all depressed superhero number 2, depressed superhero number 3. That's every character. So I don't like this style. Tom King, not every character has to be depressed. Okay, there, moving on. All right, Tom King number 2, Batman 72. This is Tom King trying to be Snyder. Scott Snyder? Shoot. Let's see. Well, yeah. And so he's wrapping up things, how things started way back in book 1 of Rebirth and how everything's been a setup the whole time. No. That's annoying. And then he does it all through the long drawn out explanation. So it's it goes back and it shows some interesting stuff from the story, but no, I don't care about this long run. I honestly kind of get the feeling, if Tom King had this all marked out, this is what, 72, if he had it all planned out 72 issues ago, 3 years ago, and he's just tying it all together now in a perfect bow, with the level of detail that he's trying to include in it, if he did that, I'm kind of frustrated that he did that as well, because the layout has been so long and drawn out. Stories that could have been told in 2 issues are told in 6, and it's just so stretched out that if he had the plan, he executed it poorly. And if he didn't have the plan and he's just backfilling now to tie up a story, like he just had a general arc, that's fine, but don't pretend that it's something like the idea that Bane was knocked out with 1 hit and he did that on purpose. That was something that he said, we've been planning this since book 16. Like, if you have, then you laid out way too many issues between then and here, because honestly, I don't know, I don't care. But that's just Tom King. Gonna be happy to get to issue 85 and move on to see who is next. I will keep my eyes open for who they're going to be replacing Tom King with on Batman. I hope that it's somebody awesome. I have some people who I would choose, but we'll see. Man, Brian Hill would be fantastic. I think he could do Batman well. He's doing Batman and the Outsiders. Maybe that's a trial for him to get in on Batman. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, next up, probably my least favorite book, which is really sad, because I started my Batman run. One of the first things that I did as I was starting to get into comic books was I picked up the first couple of issues of Batman Rebirth, the Tom King run, and one of the first things that I saw in there was Duke, the Signal. I actually picked up the Signal, and I was reading, trying to figure out who this character was, and it sent me back to, I think, year 1 or year 0 hour from the Snyder Capullo run of Batman New 52. And so I read 0 Hour. I went and got the trade paperback, and I read that, and I thought that was a really cool story. And so, one of the first complete stories that I read in modern comics was Snyder and Capullo, and I was hoping for more. This is kind of one of those just bizarro, out there stories. Honestly, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read the next book. I don't care if it's the best book out there. This one I'm done with. It was that bad. He just got a Joker head for some reason. They're like, I can see him sitting in there, and then Joker's head is in a bowl, and it talks to him. Why? How? Anyway, this is not my book. That's fine. Some people might like it. Some people might get that more than I do, but for me, I'm done. All right, next up I have a book that I bought just for the cover. We've got an Art Germ, Black Cat #1. I wasn't going to pay extra for the Virgin variant of this, but I do think that it's an awesome Black Cat by Art Germ. Fantastic. Don't know if the story map is interesting or not. Don't really care. It's a Black Cat cover, so that's cool. And then I bought 2 books that were available mostly as speculation. And I'm not that interested in reading them, but I will tell you why I bought these. So I picked up #1. It's still available at my shop. It's not going to be a hard to find book for a long time. But I picked up #2 and #3, and I think I'm going to stop at this point. But the reason that I picked them up is because I saw, is this Arrow right here? I saw the cover for Arrow #1 that's coming out in a couple months that Art Germ did. And I was like, it's probably worth it to know who this character is, how they developed a little bit. I'm probably not going to read it, but I've got them available if that's something that is interesting. And I figure it's better to have them available and buy them now than try to catch up on it if the price does spike, because there's a lot of first appearances and stuff in these books. So that's why I picked them up. I'm not even interested in reading them for now because I couldn't get through New Agents of Atlas #1. But there they are. Okay, now I have some back issues. And I went to several shops. And I got to tell you, all different kinds of shops all along the South. So I went to some in Alabama, North Carolina, and Louisiana. So I didn't pick up a whole lot because I really do have a focused list of books. And I picked up things if they were interesting, but I didn't get anything off of my list from those shops. But there were several shops that were very interesting. So first, one shop that I went to, I picked up this book, Catwoman #58. This shop was really, really cool. So this was in North Carolina. The shop was excellent, but they knew their comic books, and so almost everything was priced at exact market prices. I didn't see anything that was undervalued there, which is great. I'm good for them. They know what the market is. The shop was a pure comic shop. I mean, they had a little bit of statues and stuff, but it wasn't a pop culture shop. It was a comic shop, and it had a ton of comic books all over. They had a good section of silver and bronze. They didn't have a lot of high value comic. Well, I take that back. They did. They had an area behind glass that had high value comic books. But anyway, I looked through. I bought this for the Zatanna cover. I'm probably gonna, going forward, put in a couple of Zatanna covers, every year or whatever, every list, because I like them, just plain and simple. So Adam Hughes, Zatanna, great mixture. Honestly, Hawkman #4 is going to be one of the next books that I try to get. I may try to get it this year if I can pull it off, but that's a book that I definitely want. But I paid market price, which is about $15, 12 to 15 for this. I think I paid, I want to say 15 for this book. I didn't write it down or anything, but it wasn't a good deal. But I just don't see this book very often, so I figured I'd pick it up. So that shop was very cool. Next, I went to a really small hole-in-the-wall shop, and this one had some stuff that was way overvalued and some stuff that was way undervalued. And to me, that's the kind of shop that I want to go to, because a lot of times they mark stuff up when they hear about it, but they miss things, and so there's pockets of things that are overvalued and undervalued. So I did pick up Ray #0, the first appearance of Bloodshot. Fairly good quality. There's a little bit of a nick down here, so it's not going to be a 9.8 or anything like that. But I thought it was cool. I just saw it on the shelf. I paid $10 and I got 20% off because they were giving it to me, so I paid $8 for the book. I think that's a pretty fair price. I know for a while it was going for more like 30, but I think it's down a little bit right now. And I just think it's cool. It's not a rare book. In this condition, it's really not worth much, but cool. Bloodshot, first appearance. Happy to have it. All right. I went to another shop that I got to keep going here. So this one picked up at my local comic shop, and they just had it in the shelf, and I was just kind of thinking, okay, what have I seen? What have I heard? I don't remember why I pulled open the Venom drawer, but I did pull it open, and they just happened to have a Lethal Protector #4, which is the first appearance of Scream. And he was having a 20% off sale, so this one, he had it marked for $6, so it was $4.80, so I picked it up. No big deal. I'm going to leave this here. I had one shop that I walked into that was an amazing shop. It was in a small town in Alabama, and the shop itself was not great. They didn't have much interesting books at all out in front, but in the back of the shop they had a mountain of long boxes. And I was talking to the guy in the store, and I talked to him about the books that I was looking at there, and asked him if I could take a look through some of the boxes if I didn't move any. He's like, yeah, go ahead and look back there. So I started to scan through these long boxes in the back, and he had, oh man, this guy's collection was like the kind of stuff that I love. So it was a mixture. So one box that I thumbed through just had low number issues of Spider-Man. They were all kind of low grade, but still, I mean, I was seeing like Spider-Man 6 and 12 and, really early Silver Age Spider-Man. None of them had prices on them. And I'll get back there in just a minute. But then, so like, he also had a whole bunch of kind of store variants and limited variants and things like that just in these boxes loose out there. So I'm looking through a couple of those, and I actually found an Art Germ variant that I didn't even know existed. Now it was a Robotech. I have the first print, I have the second print. The one that he had was like a black and white version variant, which I had no idea existed. It's probably a retailer exclusive, don't know where, but he had it, and he actually had 2 copies of it. And I grabbed one, and I said, if I can get this for like $20-$30, I'll buy it. But we'll get there in just a second. And then the other thing that he had a bunch of, he had like this section of signed books, or books that were prepared to be signed. I don't think they were signed yet, but they were in sheets that had been cut out so that the signatures could be put on it while maintaining them in 9/8. Very, very carefully taken care of. And then he had some kind of current issues that were just valuable, and I grabbed a couple of those. So I walked up to the guy that was running the store, and I had in my hand like 5 or 6 books. I wasn't looking to spend a whole lot, but I said, okay, so these books, you know that they're worth money, I know that they're worth money, they're recent. If you can sell them to me for cover price, I'll take them. If you're going to try to gouge me at all, I don't want them. And he said, yeah, we're going to try to get some money off them. They're like $10 books, which to me, I'm like, by the time you sell them for $10 and take out shipping and a box cost, you're down to making basically cover price anyway. So it's not actually very interesting for a retailer to sell them for much more if they're not selling them to someone in the store. And that he wasn't set up to sell them in the store. So then I asked about the Robotech Art Germ variant, and he said, nah, I don't know what the owner wants to do with that, but that's something that he's not going to sell. Then I had a couple of older books, and he's like, nah, I can't put a price on those. And it's like, at that point, what do you do? Like, you've got thousands of books in the back of your store. None of them are for sale. Okay. So I loved looking through those books. Wish I could have bought something. Wish the store was better set up for sales. But it's a small town in Alabama. Probably doesn't get a lot of people coming through and looking at the physical store. So they've, adjusted and pivoted, and they sell a lot online. Good for them for making it work. Frustrating for me to be there, but I actually got the list, and I might try to buy some through their online methods as well. We'll keep an eye out. Okay, so I've got one last book to check out. To show you. This one I bought from eBay, and it is Justice League Power Rangers #1. I finally found it. Now this is a pretty beat up book. It's not in great condition. It's a bunch of spine ticks. I don't care. The goal here was this is the last Art Germ cover back issue that I needed to find. So here we go. This was #2 on my list of books to pick up this year. Justice League Power Rangers art germ, and I got the color variant, which is what I wanted. Now, I did not spend $50. I spent $30, which seems like a lot, especially for the condition, but I have not seen it for under $50 by itself, and it was looking more like it was going to be $55 or $60, if you can even get it by itself. But I did pick it up. I picked it up the day that it was listed. Just kind of considered it, and I said, that'll work. Ching ching, sent my money in, and I got it. So I have one more checked off the list. Only 3 left this year, and we're only halfway through the year, so feeling pretty good about where I am. A couple of big books. Marvel Spotlight #5 I've been keeping an eye on, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get a decent copy for $300. So, and also I think ASM 252 for $50 is not realistic. I think that's going to be more like $100, but I really, really need that book. So I'm going to be getting that one pretty soon. But very happy to have one more off the list. Let me just pull back some of my favorite books from the week, put them out here for all to see, and we'll just call it there. So thank you for listening. I don't really have any, I'm just happy to be back, happy to be home, happy to be reading my comic books and not having a big stack waiting for me. Got through that. So that's where I'll end it for now. And hope you have a good week. Happy hunting. Good luck finding the books that are on your list. Thanks.